morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
And a happy Valentine's Day weekend to you. Now, I'm not much of a romantic, but the final item on the Rangeland news this week will let you in on something really romantic that I got from my wife Billy last Valentine's. And since Valentine's is all about hearts and flowers and romance, we'll bring you a lot of that today. Chris Isaac will have a real nice romantic one for the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight.
And she feels she's married a dope because he wants to go rope when a Sunday picnic would be more her style. But she smiles and says fine as he picks up his twine and goes to chase corrientes for miles.
On the Rangeland News, a familiar face and voice is returning to the USDA, Tom Vilsack.
If confirmed, Vilsack would not only serve as Ag Secretary in the Biden presidential administration.
And Baxter Black remembers a late-night call back when he was a practicing large animal vet.
With Mama's help, he'd gotten far enough to pop his nose and his ears out and no further. He didn't seem in distress, just a little embarrassed.
On the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, I'll give you a few personal examples of how the horse I was riding became suddenly unbroke and what caused it. And Saskatchewan rancher Mark Elford's back. And this week we'll talk not just about horses and cattle, but about music and trees.
See, Karen, there's some blessings to living in treeless country.
That's right. Now, this would never happen to you.
And the playlist this week focuses on cowboy love songs, and Ryan Fritz loads the chute.
It's been a long road to home on the trail to Alberta, but we're going west to start a new life. And with the wind in our face and the walls far behind us, in a new land the redcoats may sail. With the trust of a good wife, in hopes of a new life, 3 children who look on ever west. For the daylight is going and our pace is slowing, so we pull off and make camp for the night. And she'd sing, "Folly Rolly husband," I say, "Folly Rolly wife," and we hold each other close under the moonlight. Oh, we take our evening coffee and give our thanks to God. And the mules are grazing and the kids are sleeping in the wagon. Yes, the mules are grazing and the kids are sleeping in the wagon. Where the buffalo have died, the bones are piled high from the hide men who worked their way through. And a skinny coyote watches, like me he wonders just where he might eat tonight. And she'd sing, "Folly Rolly husband," I say, "Folly Rolly wife," and we hold each other close under the moonlight. Oh, we take our evening coffee and give our thanks to God. And the mules are grazing and the kids are sleeping in the wagon. Yes, the mules are grazing and the kids are sleeping in the wagon. says the mountain we just passed. We're in Alberta here at last. From the sweet grass on up the Great Divide. The living's hard, but you're free. So graze your stock and see if the winning of the West is meant to be. And she'd sing, Holly Rolly husband, I say, Holly Rolly wife. And we hold each other close under the moonlight. Oh, we take our evening coffee and give our thanks to God. And the mules are grazing and the kids are sleeping in the wagon. Yes, the mules are grazing and the kids are sleeping in the wagon.
If you were here last week, you'll recall that Mark Elford and I left off talking about living that romantic picture of a cowboy with a newborn calf laying across the front of his saddle as he and his faithful pony head for the barn with a mama cow trailing right behind.
I have held him on my horse and trailed the cow in. An easy cow, you can do that.
Yeah.
You know, but a lot of times, like that picture you painted, that's kind of an idea somebody had.
Yeah, it looks, it's a nice, real nice image, but in real life all the time it doesn't quite work. But,
No, it's kind of like a Louis L'Amour story.
Yeah.
Really nice story, but it's a little tough in reality, ain't it?
Yeah. A neighbor of mine made up I helped him calving, I don't know, the last 5 or 6 years, longer than that probably, and then he dispersed his cow herd 2 years ago, but he built a pretty good rig with a couple of old skis that he bolted to the bottom of this toboggan, and then put something on it, and then some bungee cords, and you get a calf on there, and you just kind of secure them pretty good, and worked pretty well. I found that was pretty good for young horses to, if you got branding coming up in a couple of months, dragging the calf on this toboggan in there, and he'd ride with the two of us. We're usually moving pairs out, so that's why we do it. But if there's a real fresh one and it was cold and that calf was hypothermic, well, that's how we do it. But we had to cross a road, piece of pavement, and if it was bare, the steel on the bottom of those skis would just start to make an awful sound when you drug it across the road, and that spooked a few colts, going across. But.
Yeah, we've had the same thing. We use one of them plastic sleds, and it pulls really easy on the grass, or if you got a little skiff of snow or something. But a lot of them colts, they don't like that plastic,
sound,
and it takes a while before they'll kind of come to it. Yeah. But when you're far enough away, if you got a long enough rope, it helps them a little too.
That's right. Yeah, you can get way out there 40, 50 feet.
Yeah, kind of dally at the knot, and it's not as threatening to them. And then when a little weight comes on it, it seems like it's better than when it's light.
That's right. They sort of lean into it a little bit.
Yeah. Kind of walk away with it a little, and seems like it's better than when it's just kind of rattling along there.
Yeah. Well, Riders in the Sky will have one of the prettiest cowboy love songs I could find, and Mark and I will talk more about horses, grandkids, and Christmas trees when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. I find it interesting how, with a good conversation, a good visit with a friend or a neighbor, which seems kind of rare these days, one subject often leads to another. And Mark and I were talking about pulling a calf on a plastic toboggan behind a horse, and how that was pretty good work for a young horse, and then one thing just led to another.
When our grandkids come up, they just love to hop on that little red toboggan, and Grandpa's going to pull them around out in the pasture behind a horse, and that's just great. And then, of course, we bring our Christmas tree in that way all the time, too, and they think that's kind of cool. So.
Well, we'd be a long time finding a good Christmas tree.
Yeah, well, there's one down there. Do you decorate that one tree at Christmas time? Or?
Well, Karen decorates the one by the house, and actually, Karen pretties the yard up pretty good with lights at Christmas time. We got trees around the yard, and we got one evergreen tree there that she makes look pretty good. Yeah. It's right there it gets the runoff from the eaves of the house, and so it's doing really fine.
We built at our age, we kind of wondered what we were doing, but we built a new house on our place, and we lived in a double wide for 25 years on the same place up until that time, and the new house has got a 17-foot vaulted ceiling in the living room, so it'll handle a pretty big Christmas tree. So we took the kids out a week and a half before Christmas last year, and Lucky, my mare, and my other boy with a little handsaw, and we found this big tall tree. So Spencer shinnied up there as far as he could and cut the top off, and it hit the ground, and we put my rope on it, and I dragged it into the yard behind Lucky, and he helped us set it up. And oh, that thing was big. And he had a big extension ladder that he was using to put the decorations on the top. And I looked at it and said, you know, Spence, that tree seems to be leaning out. No, it's straight, Dad. It'll never fall down. It's fine. Well, 3 or 4 nights later, Grandma and Grandpa were sitting there watching a hockey game on TV, and all of a sudden I heard this swish and curl, whoop! And that tree came down, hit the floor, missed us by about a foot. And if it had hit us, a week later, the neighbors would have found Grandma and Grandpa dead under the Christmas tree. You know? But we got it set back up again, but we did not put the decorations back on the top. Like, it was only decorated halfway up after that.
See, Karen, there's some blessings to living in treeless country.
That's right. Now, this would never happen to you.
No, Karen was raised in BC, and so she knows about trees and mountains, and we just don't have, you know, we got a few poplars in some of our country, but we just, my sister and her brother, and her husband, my brother-in-law, live about 12 miles straight east of us, and a couple of years ago we went there for Christmas Day, and she had got a dead old branch off a willow and had it decorated for a Christmas tree, and I thought it was appropriate.
Well, Mark Elford sang the national anthem at the Ranch Rodeo in Edmonton, where we first met, and I'm going to ask him more about his life with music, but right now, I think this is pretty much a perfect cowboy song for Valentine's Day, written by the king of the cowboy fiddlers, Woody Paul, and done here by his group Riders in the Sky. And listen for the sweet blend of Woody's fiddle and Joey Miskelin's accordion on The Arms of My Love. And this is so sweet that I'm not going to be talking over top of it.
Sailing high across the wide prairie sky, lead me home to the arms of my love. Why did I ever go chasing cattle and rainbows far away from the arms of my love? Does she wait by the firelight, cry through the long night? Does she dream of the cowboy who rode through her heart? Dusty trail, lead me on, and I'll never roam evermore from the arms of my love.
When I hear that, I just can't help but think, wouldn't that make a wonderful theme for an epic old Western movie playing behind all the scenes as they're riding along? Well as riding and roping and starting colts and building and fixing fences and putting up feed and repairing machinery, music has always been a big part of life for Mark and Karen.
Yeah, we grew up, well, I was hatched right there kind of where we live, and we grew up singing at home. That was, Mom had the piano there, and we didn't have a TV, and we had the radio. Of course, we'd hear songs and all that, and Mom had whole familyhood of songs, and we grew up singing all those old songs. And of course, some of her favorites were Wilf Carter and Marty Robbins, and so I still like hearing those songs, you know, and I like singing some of them, and I kind of carried that on into our life. And Karen and I like to sing, and we actually do a little bit of singing here and there, you know, for some people that want to hear us. Yeah. And I write some cowboy songs and some poems, and so we've been getting to present some of those some places, and it's been kind of fun for us too.
Yeah. So you sing harmony like together, or you play guitar and sing and perform in front of?
Yeah, Karen sings harmony to me most times. Yeah. And she's a better singer than I am.
Boy, well, she must be really good, because you're pretty darn good.
No, she's a great singer, and besides being a pretty lady, you know, and a great friend, like she's, but yeah, she even sings on some of the songs I've written, and so that's pretty nice. You know, the stuff I write sort of maybe for one audience anyway, for the most part. Yeah. It's got a cowboy angle on most of it, and some of it maybe is a little different, but most of it's kind of cowboy tainted anyways, for sure. And the poems are, I mean, they're just cowboy poems like anybody writes.
Coming up, Baxter Black takes us on a late-night vet emergency call. Another cowboy love song, this time from Cindy Church. Then the Rangeland News, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, and I'll be right back after this with a little peek at Bentley, the born-again bull.
Your land is a legacy, a challenge from those who tended it before you to build on their foundations. At Corteva Agriscience, we understand what it means to be the stewards of a legacy. We embrace the challenge of building on the foundation of Dow AgroSciences to maintain your trust, to bring new solutions, to help you care for your land. See how we can help build your legacy at rangeandpasture.com.
And for our Canadian listeners, just check Corteva.ca, the Canadian website.
It was one of those 2 o'clock in the morning calls. Looked like everything was coming just fine, Doc, and then he got stuck. Could you come? Well, on the way out to the ranch, I put the truck on autopilot while my foggy brain sifted through the possibilities. Hip lock, more than likely, I figured. I walked into the cabin barn, shook the snow off my coat, and surveyed the scene. Fairly peaceful. 2 unshaven cowboys playing cards in front of the space heater, and a good-sized heifer standing in the chute, looking no worse for the wear. Good, I thought. The boys haven't worn the heifer out before they called, or themselves, either, for that matter. I peeled down to my short-sleeved coveralls and went to survey the battlefield. There, underneath the heifer's cocktail, peering out at the new world, was Bentley, the baby bull calf. All I could see was his head. With Mama's help, he'd gotten far enough to pop his nose and his ears out, and no further. He didn't seem in distress, just a little embarrassed. He looked like some trophy hunter's prize hanging on the den wall. Since the umbilical cord hadn't broken yet, he had no need to breathe, but he was looking around like a kid in a neck brace at the county fair. After my examination, I concluded he had one front leg into the birth canal and the other pointing straight back. He was wedged in tight as a new hat band. "Bentley," I said, "I hope you brought your scuba gear, 'cause you got to go back inside." I gave the heifer an epidural injection so she couldn't strain. I put my hand over his nose and started to push. Bentley raised an eyebrow and looked up at me. "You sure you got a license to do this?" he said. Sure, I said. I bought it from a guy in Iowa when he sold out his practice. Well, it wasn't easy, but I popped the little duffer back in, straightened his legs, and then pulled him into the outside world. He was typically ungrateful. As I rubbed him down, pointed into the breakfast nook underneath Mama's flanks, he turned once and looked at me. "I've heard of being born again," he said, "but this is ridiculous." This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, brought to you by Corteva Agri-Science.
The way the Canada Revenue Agency deals with ranchers and farmers has changed a lot in the last few years, and the financial decisions we make today can have a long-lasting impact on our bottom line far into the future. It really helps to have a trusted professional who really understands your situation to guide you with all your accounting requirements and your tax preparation. Having an accountant who knows the difference between a Hereford and a heifer, what a slick and backgrounding are, and that Alfalfa and Timothy are not just names from a storybook really helps. Kathy McMillan of PMT Chartered Professional Accountants understands the intricacies of specialized programs like Agri-Stability and Agri-Invest. She understands the demands on your time and can help you spend more time doing your job and less time dealing with endless piles of paperwork. See pmtaccountants.com or call toll-free 877-383-8081. Just ahead of the Rangeland news, more Valentine stuff. The great picker, musician, sometimes foothills cowboy Nathan Tinkham wrote and produced this one for Cindy Church. Love on the Range.
Sun's gone down and the work day's through all day. He's thinking of a rendezvous. Puts up a saddle, throws his horse some hay. From Longview, love's just an hour away. Oh, he shaves and showers, puts his town clothes on, grabs best hat of the old deer horn, jumps in his truck, turns the motor on, warms it up on the way to town. It's late in the evening, but his sweetheart knows he's burning up his tires on the gravel road. She just can't wait till she sees him again. That's the way it is with love on the range. That's the way it is with love on the range. Sweetheart knows he's burning up his tires on the gravel road. She just can't wait till she sees him again. That's the way it is with love on the range. That's the way it is with love on the range. It's late in the evening, but his sweetheart knows up his tires on the gravel road. Same thing tomorrow, it will never change. That's the way it is with love on the range. That's the way it is with love on the range.
The Rangeland News from the Spirit of the West. A roundup of issues and events from the world of agriculture.
At the top of page 1, it sounds like we're going to be running quotes from a familiar name in agriculture again. Under the Biden regime, Tom Vilsack will be getting his old job back as U.S. Agriculture Secretary. Rod Bain has more.
Tom Vilsack, fondly recalling his time as U.S. Agriculture Secretary during a visit with farm broadcasters 2 years ago, while serving as president and CEO of the U.S. Dairy Export Council.
It's a fabulous job, and so I'm just proud of the work that the 95 to 100,000 people did when I was there, and just feel incredibly privileged and honored to have had the job.
An honor and privilege the former secretary, pending Senate confirmation, will experience again. If confirmed, Vilsack would not only serve as Ag Secretary in the Biden presidential administration, he would add to the 8 years previously spent in the position between 2009 and 2017, one of the longest tenures for a person in that role. As mentioned earlier, the former secretary has spent the last 3 years with the U.S. Dairy Export Council, working on various trade issues, global promotion, and innovation.
There are an awful lot of different ways to innovate our way to a healthy dairy industry.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Brazil's beef producers aim to boost export volumes by 6% next year as they negotiate access to new markets in Asia and in North America. Now, it's estimated that Brazil, the world's biggest beef supplier, could export 2.141 million tons next year, worth about 8.789 billion, up from a record of 2.020 million tons this year, and that's worth about 8.533 billion U.S. Brazil is negotiating agreements to sell fresh beef to Canada, Japan, South Korea, Mexico, and officials said that Brazil now exports only processed beef products to Canada. And Cargill announced it'll temporarily idle two of its protein-producing facilities for scheduled maintenance. The idling of the plants is not related to COVID-19. On February 4th, Cargill will idle its Dodge City, Kansas facility. I guess they don't trail cattle into there anymore like they used to. And March the 18th, it'll idle its Nebraska facility. Both sites are primary processing operations and will be down for about a week to perform previously scheduled maintenance of their refrigeration system. The Montana Cowboy Hall of Fame and Western Heritage Center has postponed its 2020 inductee recognition ceremony and Western Heritage Gathering, which is normally held in February each year, to Saturday, August the 14th, 2021. The planned inductee recognition ceremony brunch at the Heritage Inn in Great Falls will celebrate the notable accomplishments and lasting legacies of the inductees to the Montana Cowboy Hall of Fame class of 2020. The next regular cattle sale at the BC Livestock Producers Co-op Kamloops Yards is February the 23rd. The Williams Lake regular sale February the 25th, and the regular sale at Vanderhoof on the 26th. And you can get all the details and, of course, see the sales streaming live at bclivestock.bca, and there's also information on their website there on how to bid online. Meanwhile, at the Innisfail Auction Market, Innisfail, Alberta, long-time facility, proudly owned and operated by the Dames family for many, many years. Regular cattle sales every Wednesday. And on February 17th, it's the Future Legends Simmental Bull Sale and another pre-sort yearling sale on Monday, March 1st. Cattle, of course, are sorted on Sundays the day before. And to book your cattle, give them a call, 1-800-710-3166, and see InnisfailAuctionMarket.com. Okay, here comes the final item. Now, this is Valentine's weekend, of course, and last Valentine's Day, I really got something special and unique for Billy. She woke up the morning before and she told me that she just had a dream that I had bought her a brand new outfit from Irvin's, along with a set of Daniel Gordon custom-made boots and a set of ladies' spurs engraved with her initials. Oh boy. She looked at me and said, well, what do you think you can do about that? And I went right to work. And the next day, Valentine's Day, I gave her this great book with the title, The Meaning of Dreams. And that's the Rangeland News. Coming up on the Irvin Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, I'll take you through a few episodes of my horse becoming suddenly unbroke and what caused it, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. You may have noticed that I haven't mentioned the Spirit of the West cruise for the last couple of weeks, but behind the scenes we've been doing a lot of work and research, trying to decide how to work through the pandemic, the restrictions, and make sure that our group still has a wonderful experience and has absolutely no risk of getting that virus. And one way or the other, we should be able to do that, but maybe not exactly when we'd hoped to. So stay tuned, the details will be coming soon.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
At Urban Tack and Western Wear, they'd love to deliver everything to their customers on horseback, because after all, riding is their passion. Of course, that's not really possible, but I'll tell you what, you can order anything online and they'll deliver to your door in no time. By truck, that is. So wrangle up your Western Wear and more at urbans.ca and get this, free shipping on orders over $100. Some restrictions apply, or stop in today the good old-fashioned way. Exit 305 off Highway 2 by Crossfield.
Canada's largest Western store.
How can a horse become unbroke? Well, mine have many times, and so have lots of others too. Somehow, it seems to be a popular notion that once a horse is so-called well broke, trained to do everything the rider wants, the way the rider wants it done, it's permanently saved on the horse's hard drive, and he'll always do it right, wrong. I'm not sure why. But even some of the basic yields a horse learns early in his training process need revisiting from time to time. For example, Little Blazer, the other day he really did well at the groundwork and the liberty work, but when I got on and rode him for a while, we did a nice left lead canter depart, loped around about 100 yards and did a decent stop. And after that, I always ask for a soft vertical flex and about 3 steps of a soft collected backup. And then I let him rest. Well, the stop was okay, but it took 3 tries to get him to break at the pole, relax his jaw, and give me that vertical flex. And when I asked him to back up, it just wasn't there. Instead of his nose tucking in toward his chest, his ears wanted to come up into my face, and each time I put the pressure on the reins for the backup, he would brace and lock up. How long has he been doing this properly? Well, several months, but it took about 40 minutes of maneuvering to get back. And that same day, I was moving some yearling steers in a pasture, full of thick, heavy timber and brush, riding Cody. And next to Lucky, she's probably the best working ranch horse we have on the place now. And I put a pile of miles doing ranch work on her. Well, we had 5 steers trailing ahead of us through the bush, when I thought maybe I'd ridden her through a hornet's nest. She started jumping around. I had to do a pretty firm hindquarters yield around and around and around for about the next 10 circles. And when she finally came back under control, I found out that we had not ridden through a hornet's nest. At least I don't think we did. She just had spooked big time at a black steer that came up behind us out of the bush and caught her by surprise. Good thing her basic hindquarter yield was still working, and she had no problem settling right back down to the job, and there were no hard feelings from either side. This is the kind of stuff that just happens with horses. And for Urban Saddles and Western Wear, that's the Horse Training File. Every day, our horses get a feeding of Hoffman's Horse Ration. They love it, and we can see how much good it does them. You can find out what's in it. Just go to hoffmanshorseproducts.com. Okay, now take a deep breath and give me your best emotional outburst. Not much can raise your stress level more than a tractor breakdown when you need it most. We've all spent hours on the phone and driving around trying to find the right parts, and that's no fun when you're missing something you need to finish the job. Here's a better way. Just go to bctractorparts.com. That's where you can find about any part for any make of tractor. If you're restoring a vintage tractor or just keeping up the maintenance on the ones you're using, you can have the parts you need in a short time. And you know what? There's some great pictures of tractor restoration projects and much more right there at bctractorparts.com. What? Oh, you don't have internet? Well, try calling Mark at 250-395-0960. You know, there's a lot of conflicting information over the origin of Valentine's Day, and I won't get into that, but I can tell you that the first commercial Valentines in North America were printed about the mid-1800s, and Valentines commonly depict Cupid, the Roman god of love, along with hearts traditionally thought of as the seat of emotion, and because it was thought that the avian or bird mating season begins in mid-February in some places, birds also became a symbol of the day. Traditional gifts, of course, include candy and flowers, and particularly red roses, a symbol of beauty and love. And in our modern times, I guess these romances don't always work out. Now, a guy that I know whose relationship with his new girlfriend was not going well, so I heard, just got a Facebook message from Cupid saying he'd like his arrow back. So most of the time it goes well, though, and here's Rodeo Kate on fiddle along with Alan Chapman and Love in the West.
On the banks of the Brazos, he took her hand. The preacher smiled as he slid on a gold wedding band. His cowboy pards hollered, and her friends smiled and fanned. On the banks of the Brazos, where it all began. Love in the West, made of high hopes and dreams. Love under blue skies, where the air is still clean. It ain't no small thing, this making a nest for a husband and wife, the rest of their life. It's love in the West. Springtime years later at the Brazos again, teaching boys how to swim, and she's mending a hymn. She smiles across the blanket and his eyes flash in the wind. On the banks of the Brazos, once again, love in the West, made of high hopes and dreams. Love under blue skies, where the air is still clean. It ain't no small thing, but you give it your best. Just a husband and wife, the rest of their life. Love in the West. On the banks of the Brazos, together they stand. Some 60 years later, she takes his hand, while grandchildren snap photos and dance to the band on the banks of the Brazos. Ah, ain't it grand? Love in the West, made of high hopes and dreams. Love under blue skies, still clean. It ain't no small thing, but somehow they're blessed. Just a husband and wife, the rest of their life is love in the West. It ain't no small thing, this making a nest. Just a husband and wife, the rest of their life. Love in the West. Love in the West. Love in the West.
Mark Elford, the guy that we've been visiting with for the last couple of weeks, has written some songs and some poems, and I thought maybe we could convince him to do one of his originals.
Can you share any here? What we got?
Well, I could...
nothing like putting you right on the spot here. But
dang, I wish I'd have brought my book, but I could tell you this one about my neighbor. Karen's my neighbor. Karen's good friends with Kathy, and I wrote this about Kathy a few years ago. I guess I'd have to say they're great neighbors and good friends. And anyways, the story goes like this. The story unfurls about a certain girl who became my neighbor's wife. She was long of limb and fairly slim and loving her cowboy's life. A doing hard work, she'd never shirk come rain or sleet or hail. The job had be done that she'd begun, and I've rarely seen her fail. Purty as can be, blonde hair blown free, she loves it out in the sun. And getting a tan, I'm sure, was her plan the day this tale was begun. Now, I'm not sure of the time as I write this rhyme that Cowboy Doug and I left the shack, but with horses in tow and driving pretty slow, we weren't sure when we'd be back. Now, there's only one trail that matters to this tale, and it leads right by her ranch. A garden she'd seeded was being weeded. Doug could tell that with only one glance. I missed it, you see, that black bikini. I was turning on old Red's wheel. I was staring straight ahead like a tongue on a sled and never heard her surprised squeal. Surprised? Oh, you bet. She ain't forgot yet 2 cowboys in an old beat-up truck. In the corn she dived. Doug gave it a 5. Me, I was mad at my luck. Well, she was still hiding while Doug was describing all the things that he had just seen. We were afraid she was hurt. She left divots in the dirt and smashed some corn and some beans. Some neighborly advice. You better think twice before you make that dive through the sky, because even though the corn's growing, there's something left showing when it's only 4 inches high.
Hey, that was just great. Listen, Mark, I wish we could sit and talk for hours here. Thank you so much for leaving your duties for a few minutes and doing this on the Spirit of the West. Really appreciate it. And you guys are ever out Kamloops way, be sure and give us a call. And we'll sit around, we'll play some songs, and have a great visit.
You're on. And, if you're ever, we aren't really on the way to anywhere. But if you're ever on the way there, you come to our place.
We will keep that in mind for sure. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Ah, what a great couple. Coming up is another one of those terrific songs that a lot of us who have been working along in double harness for a long time can sure relate to. And then it'll be Chris Isaacs in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Sometimes, I guess if we spend too much time watching the TV news or reading all the stuff online, we can start to feel a little bit down. But where we live and where so many of you live in the rural West, there's more than enough to give us a lift. All we have to do is look around. We've raised cattle and trained horses together on our little place for a long, long time, and all around us, there are other ranching couples who share our love of this way of life. Some of them are still pretty young and enthusiastic, and boy, are they energetic. Some are middle-aged, starting to really be able to enjoy the fruits of their years of labor together. And some are well up in their years. Maybe they've scaled down their operations a bit, but there's such a richness to their lives that you can't even describe. But this song from Marvin Odell and the Red Hot Rhythm Rustlers comes pretty close. The 18 and 21 Wall.
She helps him put on his jacket. He hands her walking cane. They slowly work their way down the stairs, hoping she won't fall again. His back won't let him stand tall anymore. That old left shoulder is sore. He remembers the horse that fell on it as he helps her walk out the door. So many times they've walked by this river on warm San Antonio nights. For 63 years grown dim. They know they're too old to die young. But when she squeezes his hand, she's still 18. When he kisses her, he's 21.
He remembers her as the belle of the ball. He was her cowboy so fine. And whenever she's needed a rock to lean on, he's been right there every time. When he'd return from a roundup, hurtin' and sore, her soft touch would help him forget. As she rubbed his shoulder, then lay down beside him in that oversized feather bed.
So many times they've walked by this river on warm San Antonio nights. For 63 years they'd walked the same path while they whisper and hold each other tight.
Their bodies are bent, their eyes have grown dim. They know they're too old to die young.
But when she squeezes his hand, she's still 18. And when he kisses her, he's 21. But when she squeezes his hand, she's still 18.
And when he kisses her, he's 21.
Well, I went through a lot of cowboy poetry looking for something appropriate for this Valentine weekend, and I enjoyed listening to every one of them, and I thought this would work. It's Chris Isaacs.
This poem is for all the town gals who happen to fall in love with and marry a cowboy, and especially for my sweetheart Helen, who has spent well over half her life married to this old tumbleweed. I call it To the Cowboy's Wife. He's a cowboy for sure, and partner, what's more, he loves the life that he leads. And though he loves her, it's true, sometimes she feels blue from lack of the things that she needs. Oh, not diamonds or rings or other such things. That stuff never did turn her head. It's when he gets too involved in things that need solved. It's the lack of attention she dreads. And though he's handy as hell and he treats her real well, she hates that faraway look in his eye, 'cause he's a tumbleweed pard, and for him it's sure hard them new ranges just to pass by. And when she wants to just sit and visit a bit, all he's worried about is the lack of spring rain. And she just wants to balk when all his small talk concerns critters with high horns and no brains. And she feels she's married a dope, 'cause he wants to go rope when a Sunday picnic would be more her style. But she smiles and says fine, as he picks up his twine and goes to chase corrientes for miles. So she plays well her part and keeps hid in her heart all these things that he can't understand. And she'll smile and she'll hide all these feelings inside as she looks at her worn wedding band. And she prays, Lord above, help this man that I love understand that I'm glad I'm his wife, and help him try now and then to be just my friend. He's already my lover my husband, my life.
I sure hope you've enjoyed our ride into the romantic ranges this week, and I hope you can join us again right here next week at the same time. And as always, thanks to our great support crew, Mark and Kathy McMillan. And if you're looking on your YouTube channel, or our YouTube channel, you can see the great videos that Mark puts together for every program. And you can also take us along on a podcast. The links are on our website, u-mclennan.com. And if you enjoy this program, you will love Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine. You can subscribe online at cowboycountrymagazine.com. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.